standpoint, again, the key thing is to talk about the focus group projects and recruiting, and we're doing pretty well, I think, there. And then finish with any kind of comments you have. You're only half on, Tom. Do you know that?
Well, my better half though.
Oh, okay.
Let me see if I can tilt
There
my,
you go.
I
There
have
you
to
go.
tilt my thing. Is that better?
Perfect. Okay. Now you're full
Great.
presence. Anyway, so we'll talk a little bit about the focus group moderator's guide, but everybody's pretty much had a shot at that and has passed their thoughts on it. I'm pretty happy with where we are there. But then we'll talk a little about the contextual research. I just came across a wonderful place in California yesterday that was recommended by a person in New Haven who runs a large mental health operation up there and is very active in the state. And she said if I wanted to learn telehealth and technology in healthcare, that this was the person to talk to, and it was good. I'll talk about that, and we'll continue to see if anybody else has ideas for contextual stuff. But I think we're reasonably far along there. We just need to summarize it and then talk about the report format. So that's the agenda. Any other comments and
Jim,
additions?
I had one comment on the draft. It talks about the loneliness epidemic and all.
Oh, yeah.
But
Save
it
your
just,
comment
we
on the
need,
draft.
yeah, what?
Save your comment on the draft till
All right,
section 3.
will do.
And let's go to John and talk about what the list is looking like.
Sure. We have 14 people in the 80 plus category.
Oh,
So
wow.
10 and 4 alternates. Jim, I don't know what you want to do in terms of, I guess you mentioned that Ralph Hills might be participating from Zoom. In terms of the way that people came in on a first in basis, we have 6 men and 4 women.
Yeah.
And then you sent me this morning that Jean Ganussi is interested in participating. So I don't know whether you want to think about substituting her for one of the men on the list, or just leave her as an alternate. But so we have.
I asked Nina whether she could accommodate somebody piping in from Canada, which is where Ralph Hills is going to be. And she said, no problem, as long as we can set it up. And so kind of I'm fascinated with the idea that with a bunch of old guys like me and women, that we would be using high technology in terms of an international focus group, as it were.
Is
Yep.
that, is that okay to have somebody zoom in rather than live?
Well,
I would say I would think it's not preferable. Let's put it that way.
No, it's
no
not
offense to
preferable.
Ralph.
And so from the standpoint, and since we have a large group, again, Ralph, I'm sure be happy to drop off. So I can always pick up his comments. So I think that we should have 11, and whether we have the 6 men and 4 women is not a concern to me. I think the women will be able to hold their own. Jeannie Ganussi, I know quite well, and oh, it's my Alexa. Anyway, so I'm sure that she would save her comments for the future. So if we wanted a perfect match of 5 and 5, we could take Jeannie. I don't know what your opinion would be. I mean, from a research standpoint, it frankly it's not going to make any difference at all. And we have the 10, and we have a reserve in case somebody drops out at the last minute. So I'm pretty happy with where we are on the 80s and the 70s for that matter. I think that
Yeah, we have 12 on the 70s.
yeah. So
At one point, Jim, you had expressed in an ideal world we wouldn't have couples together, but it looks like that.
Yeah, well, I was going
ends
to
up
say we sort of
populating
blew that
way.
one out of the water fairly quick. And again, Nina feels that's not a problem. She can
Okay.
handle it as a
Okay.
mother. So yeah, actually, I told my wife that last night at dinner that we were trying to match the women and men, and she said, "Well, why would you not want women and and married couples?" And I said, "Well, because sometimes married couples disagree and we don't want to do it publicly. Anyway, we're in good shape. I think, again, if I'm making a presentation on Friday at the men's club and can focus it on the 60s group, if Alyssa can deliver her parents or some version, they must have friends if
Yeah. I think the timing is just tricky.
yeah, well, I understand that.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like my dad will have to take a much earlier train than he's used to getting on.
Even at a 7 o'clock? Gosh, all right. Anyway, well, and the working 60s are going to be the most difficult, I think, to find, but I'm not too worried that we can't fill that up. And
Yeah,
again,
we have,
what
we
Tom has
have
got
five,
and what I've got, we can, and I'm sure John knows a few young people.
yeah, we have 5 at the moment.
Yeah.
3 men and 2 women in the
Yep.
60 still working full or part-time.
Yeah, I'm not too worried that we will not within the end of this time next week we will have completed, I think, what's going on. We haven't seen the full impact of the Lapham newsletter, and the fact that people are reading it carefully is helpful, I think. Anyway, so overall, that's our main thrust on the focus groups. That looks like we will be able to more than meet our quotas, and Nina's very happy where she is right now, and so we can move on to the contextual stuff. Again, I mentioned this group, which is called Blue Path Health in California, but they have an East Coast office also, and they do a lot of work for California Medicare, which is called I don't know, something like Medi-Cal, or yeah, it's
Medi-Cal.
Medi-Cal, and they do a lot of work in technology and a lot of work in behavioral. So they're sort of out there as a telltale as to what's going on. They generate a lot of reports and because they're working for the government a lot, they're all printed. I will send you a couple. One of which is basically called "Closing the Gap Between Needs and Solutions in Behavioral Health." Behavioral health. I'll get it out in a minute. And so that's going to be helpful. More importantly, they have another landscape study of behavioral health services in California that she's going to send me that will be helpful. So I'm not concerned that, and you all have that list with my yellow highlights on the bibliography. I put off or stopped highlighting after 20, but there are 3 that are critical that you should have copies of at this stage of the game. If you don't, you should let me know. And that's the one that I took 5 points off of each of these 3 major studies that were all national studies, and then summarized it in a single document of 5 points. So I'd like you to be sure you read those 3, have the 3, read them, and be able to make sure that you agree with my 5 best points, as it were. And more importantly, how it's going to impact our life but there's some good trend line stuff, and particularly that one that has several billion data points in it. I mean, I've never heard of a study that big and that depth. Unfortunately, it's I think 23 or something was when they concluded it, compared to 19. But nevertheless, I don't think the trends are going to be any different. So if you guys have any other stuff, let me know. There's probably 15 or 20 of the documents that have been surfaced that are possibilities that I haven't looked at. And I don't know whether you've had that chance to go through or not. But anyway, we'll continue to exchange. We have 2 months now till closing date, as it were.
Jim,
I
can you
don't
remind us on your list of the 20, which were the 3?
Oh, yeah.
Thank
There's the
I'm sure I could go back and find it, but I think
Brookings Institute study, mental health landscape of older adults in the
Yep.
U.S., the American Psychiatric Association reports on older Americans, and the University of Michigan poll on national health aging, which is updated every 3 years and is a national study with a lot of background on it. I mean, AARP likes to quote that one, and that one with the first one is the one with all of the billions of studies or data points. So, and again, if you can't find that document, I'm happy to send you it's 2 pages basically that was my one of the ways, in case you hadn't guessed this, I tend to cover a lot of ground, and then I come back and try to write down what did I learn, and then I go back and edit it, and then I use group intelligence to edit and ensure we have something of value at the end. So that leads me to the report. I think the master report okay, let me step back. I probably am overdoing it for the seniors because what's in the back of my printed circuit is the 2010 study that Tom and I were a part of that project team, and it was a piece that looked at senior needs in general and got a lot of action. We recommended a half a dozen things to do, all of which were done, from tax abatement to benches in town to telehealth. So from a standpoint that I have a long list already of actionable items. As you can probably guess, there's some technology sprinkled in there because this woman actually that I talked to from California confirmed that technology is absolutely a necessity in the business of behavioral and mental health, particularly in diagnosis and in therapy, because they have to, because of a shortage of labor across the country in professionals, and particularly licensed professionals. Anyway, net is that I think we've got a fair amount of stuff that's been generated. Don't feel shy about generating more if you're so inclined, but all we do is cover the 15 or 20 documents that we've already surfaced, we probably will have enough contextual stuff. There's a brand new study off of what Alyssa gave me originally, or Nina, I guess, was the one that provided a study from 2023, and there's a brand new in 2025 done by the state. It looks at behavioral. So I don't know whether I've sent that to you. Take a look at that list of the top 20. And if you see something that you want to see that I haven't sent, because I don't want to overwhelm you with paper, but if you need it, let me know. And then if you come up with any bright ideas for other places to go and people to talk to, and that's the last thing I sent yesterday, the list of people that I've talked to before, during, and after this. And on that list are a select group of people that when we get to the end of August, before we publish and go public, we will talk to a group of people that include Staying Put and Marcy and the brand new. Any of you met the new health director, by the way? She just arrived.
I gotta go meet her.
A week ago or so. So I will use this as an opportunity to get acquainted. Anyway, net is that there's that list of interviews should be added to by the people that you've talked to and think are relevant. And then at the end of the day, when we have a meeting in early August, we'll take a look at what the results of the focus groups are. And I think the focus groups are not going to tell us a lot new, but what I have asked Nina to take a look at is the main thing coming out of this are how to communicate and educate all the stuff that we've learned to get it into the people that need it on a going basis. So communication and education and how they get their news and how they talk, et cetera, is going to be the main thing. Therefore, I think that all we're going to do is confirm what we already know from the quantitative study and then be able to talk about the how to educate and communicate for the future. And I think that's going to be one of the main things that we can be proud of as a deliverable. We will do part of that, obviously, with technology. And AI and telehealth are a very strong trend in psychiatric care, in case you hadn't guessed. Anyway, so I will look at forward to continuing to turf out pages of the report, and I always invite your comments, edits, additions, and oh my God, can't say that kind of deletions.
Just a quick thing, Jim.
Yeah,
Two things. One is, while we're going through this process, I mean, one of the things that we can think about, in addition to coming up with a list of recommendations, is also if there's a way in which we can help as being a convener. I mean, in some respects, the Community Foundation did that when they started with the behavioral health focus, and then obviously now through the Behavioral Health Alliance. But and so there may be a lot of convening that's already going on, but we may be able to identify some trends or some things where people haven't yet focused on it or aren't thinking about it, and help bring that to other people's attention.
I agree totally. Yeah, one of the things I think I've told you early on is that we've, as social impact partners, has been talking to the New Canaan Foundation, who has an RFP out to expand the New Canaan Alliance power and particularly in the educational area. But one of the things based on looking at that and those conversations is, to your point, John, is there's a structure out there. Unfortunately, a lot of people, at least we know half in all demographics, don't even know it exists or how to access it.
Yeah.
But more importantly, you assume these people must be talking to each other. Not so much.
Well, and I think also
create that conduit.
In terms of potential behavioral health interviews, I think two other areas that we talked about are, one, the faith-based organizations.
Yes.
Checking with a couple of them, and I think we also talked possibly about talking with STAR or some of the other organizations that are dealing with either families who are managing issues or individuals themselves.
Yeah, I think those are both, and those are easy to access. So, and if you have other ideas of other people that go on that list, and specifically by name, that will be helpful, because we're all sort of assuming that each other knows everybody in town, but that's not exactly correct.
Not me. I'm the rookie here. I'm the newbie.
Well, actually, by the time you get finished making these lists, you will understand actually, what you will understand is that free food and drink brings out the best in New Canaan, particularly seniors.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing is there are some known conduits of how you access people, particularly seniors, because Tom and I have both been working on that for a long time, and so from the standpoint, it's easy to get the information, less easy to execute programs, as you can imagine. But nevertheless, we will keep going. And there are some great opportunities to join things that are statewide and region-wide and national, for that matter, and be part of an innovation strategy for this. Because net, from my standpoint, is that it's seniors are a complex block to take a look at. It's not one big happy family of 60s, 80s, and whatnot. Mental health is not one big happy block either. There's behavioral, there's mental, there's serious mental, there's semi, et cetera, and all of the people that serve the business called mental health, which is growing like topsy, and as I mentioned early on, the capacity is not there to serve all the people that need it. And just to make life interesting, Washington is making things totally chaotic, because a lot of the mental health in all states, but particularly Connecticut, is paid for with Medicaid. So stay tuned. We're ahead of the curve. And I think we're going to come out with some fairly new findings, and it's certainly no shortage of things that can be done. Any comments on the overall structure of what I, again, sort of put together with some scissors and paste, basically, to paste that I mentioned paste to my 15-year-old the other day. She didn't know what the hell I was talking about. Anyway, net, any comments on the report structure, as it were? And you could either make it now or send it to me. But
Yeah, the only comment I had is the mental health challenges of seniors, which has gotten a lot of national press. The report needs to make it plain that the opening part is dealing with the national perspective, not necessarily the New Canaan perspective.
oh, absolutely.
Okay,
And
so
that's
that-
one of the
that was-
reasons I set it up or in my own mind as to starting with national to go to the state and then go to New Canaan. There's a lot of work that's been done by the Alliance and other places in town that will show some light on. Before we get into the hard-nosed research from the quantitative, and then Anina's work will be core to what the report really produces in terms of news. But the second part of, I'm hoping the report shows, is that we're part of a large and growing trend of seniors and mental health, et cetera, et cetera. And there's some very innovative things we can do short term and be part of a grander solution. So, anything, John? Anything, Alyssa, in terms of other comments on the report? Okay.
No, the only thing that occurred to me is that if we have time, it might be worth looking at any legislative initiatives that are being undertaken at the Hartford level around this area. So, and see whether any of those line up with some of our findings or our recommendations.
Absolutely. And that's an important factor. And I'm trying to remember whether I told you all this, but as part of the SIP project, this woman up in New Haven runs a large mental health operation for the public. That's part of, excuse me, it's part of Yale, and she's very active on a statewide basis. Last Thursday, she told me something that scares the bejesus out of me, in that I just finished working with SIP on $105 million worth of healthcare training programs, primarily healthcare for the state, that were ARPA funded, that included trying to get more people into the behavioral health business, both professional and unlicensed. That 105 million is now gone. It's finishing anyway here in the next few weeks. The state has put up $15 million into the new budget to keep that pieces of that puzzle going in terms of labor development. And that's for fiscal 26. For 27, 2 years from now, they're talking about 45 million. They kind of got it backwards. They needed the 45 now rather than later, because by then we'll all be nuts and crazy. But the net of this is that's the best that the legislature has been able to come up with after a lot of lobbying and research and et cetera, et cetera. And then again, what makes this really foggy, as it were, for the future is the Washington situation, because one of the things that I think I mentioned, I was on a Zoom with 51 different suppliers or agencies, I guess I'd call them, of doing mental health, and 4 state state groups, and they were talking in December about the fact that from Project 25, which Trump is not wanting to acknowledge, but he's reporting he appointed a Project 25 author to head Medicaid. And that guy's written opinion in the plan is to cut Medicaid as rapidly as he can. And they're doing it. And so there's all this craziness going on across not only behavioral health, medical. I mean, it's not just Medicaid. That's the sad part. So healthcare is going through the industry just as the market is going up, and particularly being created by Washington in some degree, all the anxiety and stress, just as the amount of resources being applied and the strategy. It's totally nuts. However, at the end of the day, we'll be coming up with some good facts and hopefully some enlightened thoughts about how to live a healthy life in New Canaan and et cetera, and then tie it in with some of these other local and area groups. And anyway, it's an interesting environment to be doing this project in, I think, even more so than usual. Any other comments before we quit?
I think just to John's point, if we could pull in when we are speaking with individuals, like the behavioral health project interview document, I would say it would be a good time to pull in actual legislators just to see what.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I mean, I know like Cece Marr was a social worker, and so that's a big area of focus for her in Hartford. Lucy Dathan had been on insurance and is really an expert in how Connecticut runs Medicaid. She's also on Human Services. So I would just look at everyone who has a bit of New Canaan and see if we can't have a
That's
conversation.
a great idea. Yeah, because Tom O'Day has a long-standing interest in healthcare and has obviously got some clout up there.
Here.
John, any thoughts? Tom? Okay.
No, I'm good.
I'll just tell you this, that the public health group that's assigned to the legislature's committee is a very large committee and very active. O'Day introduced me, and stop me if I told you this story, because a year ago, he introduced me to the head Republican on the public health committee, I guess it would be called. Anyway, and so I expected we'd talk about telehealth in the future and mental health. In fact, what we talked about for a half hour was the fact that what the major focus of the public health committee in the legislature was focused on was how to create a bridge for ARPA money that had been falsely or poorly decided somewhere in the bureaucracy of the state that they would not end these programs on ARPA till December. But the money was running out in July, and they were trying to figure out how to close the gap because it was going to have to come out of somebody's pocket in Connecticut. So, and so we didn't talk about the future. We didn't talk about quality of life. We didn't talk about anything. But what I also know is the public health department never even thought about mental health until COVID. And now they have some plans, et cetera, et cetera. So again, it's a whole thing that we're involved in here is an evolving situation of market, of capacity and state, and so you have a lot of policy issues and that are dated. However, we are going to get there. And again, if we can finish our focus groups, you keep pounding on your parents. With,
Yeah, they're
again,
reaching up to
if
their
they
friends.
can't do it,
Yeah.
they must know some people and that are their age peers. And so I have no concerns that if we make the contacts that we've already made and finish here in the next few days, by the end of this time next week, we will be John's work will be done in terms of capsulizing all these people. And then we're going to have to, then you will be the monkey in the middle, John, for telling some of these people that they're on the wait list.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I know a couple of them are very articulated people that are very anxious to participate. So that you're going to be a guy with a target. Anyway, okay, guys, thank you.
Thank you.
Stay cool.
Thank you, yeah. Drink
We'll
lots
be
of
in touch.
water.
Take care. Bye.